Let's talk about some of the overlooked things that you need to know about when it comes to moving to Venice, Florida. The first thing is, number one, you have got three main different ways of living in Venice. The first we have to talk about is the island. So a lot of people think of Venice and they think about Venice Island. You've got a fair amount of commercial stuff there. Obviously lots of mom and pop shops and restaurants, a lively, awesome downtown with beach vibes galore, and the beaches, obviously. You got the jetty, you got the fishing pier, like all those things. And then within that, a certain style of living that's a lot different than the rest of Venice off the island, simply for the fact that there's no HOA, but there's a certain level of maintenance and upkeep that goes to the area, and it just looks gorgeous, right? So, and within that, you're getting street lights, sidewalks, and things like that covered through your taxes. So that's one of the first things that makes it interesting. And so with that area, you're getting access to a lot of things to do. You're really close to that, and the lifestyle is much different. You're just closer to the beach. It's a little bit more walkable. You know, all those things are kind of what make Venice Island Venice Island. And it's the area a lot of people know, because usually if you're going to come to Venice on vacation or just, you know, to visit people or whatever, and you go hang out, that's where you're probably going to end up. You're probably going to end up on Venice Island, at least at one point, but most likely most of the time. Because again, that's where all the hot spots and things are to do. But a lot of people think about Venice, they think, okay, that's where I would live. And there's a lot of considerations that have to go into living on Venice Island, such as being generally closer to the water than a lot of the rest of Venice. So there's, you know, upsides to that and downsides with hurricanes and flood risks and things like that, but also quicker beach access, quicker access to the downtown and all those sorts of things. And on top of that, there's also different ways to live. There are condos throughout Venice, don't get me wrong. There are townhomes throughout Venice, don't get me wrong, off the island. But a lot of the condos, townhomes, villas, things like that, they're going to be on the island, or at least there's a lot more of them in that area than the rest of Venice. So that's definitely one thing you'll want to consider. Now, off the island, there's two other main ways to live. You got your HOAs and your non-HOAs. The main non-HOA areas to consider would be South Venice, of course, which is one of the bigger ones. Venice Gardens, both have optional HOAs to get you access to certain amenities, but you don't have to pay those, such as a private beach ferry in South Venice to get to a private beach. And then in Venice Gardens, there's an optional HOA to get you access to the community pool and building that's got some more activities going on inside of it. But again, it's optional. So if you want to live the non-HOA lifestyle, those are areas you can consider. Outside of that, and also Edgewood would be the other main one. Outside of that, you got a lot of other HOA communities throughout Venice. Real quick, I'm walking in Wellland Park. Just wanted to show you this. I talked about this in a previous video, talking about Wellland Park. Super excited for this bowl place. Salad, acai, and smoothies. Was really hoping for a bowl place to come to the area. I was personally hoping for Fresh Kitchen. Leave me a comment and let me know if you've ever had Fresh Kitchen. It's like a Florida chain that's kind of booming. I believe they started in the Tampa area and they're amazing, but there's 15-ish locations across the state. But back to my point. So they've got a lot of scattered HOA communities throughout Venice. And then if you're including Wellland Park as Venice, and I know you don't have to tell me in the comments that technically it's Northport as far as utilities and, the fire department, police, the funding, all that, taxes, all that stuff is going to be Northport, but the addresses are Venice, but really Wellland Park's kind of its own thing. But that's neither here or there or the point of this video. The reason I want to bring that up is because there's a lot of gated communities and planned communities in this area as well. And with that comes, a different lifestyle, different things to consider, what's all included in the HOA, and the whole 9 yards. And then one other area to consider would be North Venice, which also has a bunch of planned communities in that area. So you basically got three main options. You've got Venice Island, you've got off Venice Island in a planned or HOA community, and then you've got the non-HOA communities. Next thing to consider when moving to Venice is that HOA versus non-HOA lifestyle, and within that, maybe considering Venice Island. Now, the reason I bring this up as a separate point is because a lot of people no, I don't want to do an HOA, or I do want to do an HOA. And I've heard a lot of people say that, but then they want certain things that they're usually only going to get in an HOA. Some of the main things that we're talking about with that would be city water and sewer. Generally, you're going to get in an HOA or living on Venice Island. Sidewalks and streetlights. Those are things you're generally going to get in an HOA and a lot of Venice Island, not necessarily all of Venice Island. But if you're living in South Venice or Venice Gardens, some of those things are going to be a little bit more difficult to come by. There are some sidewalks throughout Venice Gardens though, which is good to know. So you know, those are things you're going to have to consider, but also within that, do you want the restrictions of the HOA? You know, because they're going to be saying you have to do this or you're going to get fined as far as upkeeping the bushes, the yards, the trees, the color of your house, the roofs. There's certain aesthetic and, you know, visual things that they're going to want looking a certain way, and you're going to have to upkeep that. Also, there's the fees, and asking yourself, is it worth it for those fees for me, or is what I'm getting out of that something I want to pay for? Example, like in a condo, sometimes townhomes, you might get your cable and internet included and water. Those are pretty common things. Freestanding homes, those usually won't be included, but your HOA fees are going to be lower, but you're going to get other things such as sometimes, a lot of times, a pool or a community clubhouse or something along those lines. Maybe a fitness center, maybe a dog park. Like as the fees go up, there's usually more stuff included. Another possibility would be like lawn maintenance. Some places will like mow your lawn. Some places will do more than mow your lawn. Some places will do your lawn, your mulch, and your bushes. You know, so those are all things you're going to want to consider. Do I want to pay for that? Do I want to do that myself? But also, you have to ask yourself, how much am I paying for that on my own? You know, and is it maybe, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I could just do that myself and it's cheaper. But they don't really think, you know, like, okay, they just think, if I pay $100 to have someone do my lawn maintenance and shrubs and all that, well, I could just do that myself and save a bunch of money. But an example is at our house, I do our lawn, I do the mulch, I do all that stuff. But that costs money. The mulch costs money. I just went to Lowe's the other day and got some new bricks to go around some of the planting beds because the grass keeps growing into them. So I want to kind of put a berry up for that. I had to get some mulch. I use an electric mower, so I'm not sure exactly how much I'm paying in gas to recharge or in electricity to recharge the batteries, but there's money going into that. There's time, you know, a business owner, my time is extremely important to me and valuable. So, you know, all those things go into that, you know, sometimes I'm like, yeah, you know what? Maybe it would be nice to just have someone handle that. I don't even have to think about it. I don't have to worry about the HOA getting on me about it if they're the ones maintaining it either. You know, there's pros and cons to that and things to consider. Cost for pesticides or having someone spray your lawn. Like if you were to have someone do that on your own, you might be able to make it cheaper, but it's going to take time, worry, headache. And how much is it really saving you? You know, so those are all little things you have to consider. I'm not trying to convince you one way or the other. I'm just, you know, want to make sure you're putting everything into consideration when it comes to making those decisions, because a lot of people are like hard passes on an HOA. And before we moved to Florida, I was too. But we realized, like when we moved here, we ended up moving to a lower priced HOA to kind of get certain things because we wanted sidewalks and street lights that you're not going to get if you don't live in an HOA. So, you know, it's important to figure out what is like really the must-haves, and a lot of times there's certain things that you have as a must-have that the only way to get that is in an HOA, so you'll want to, you know, put that into consideration. Another thing you'll want to consider when moving to Venice is flood zones. So you'll want to have an understanding of, there's a lot of factors that go into this. By the way, if you do want to buy or sell a home in the area, so we can help you navigate the process of HOAs and just flood zones, and there's just all these little things that it's hard to find online, or you maybe, you know, you'll get into the home buying process and you get to a certain point and you realize, oh wow, I didn't think about this, this, and this. We're going to make sure we have you covered on all that if you work with us. Call, text, or email us at 941-221-1897. We helped a lot of people move to the area. We'd love to help you too, and can help you avoid some of the pitfalls, you know, and just save you a lot of time. So this is some more of the development going on in the Wellland Park area right now, heading back towards the Atlanta Braves spring training facility right now, actually. But with flood zones, there's a lot of factors that go into it. Like Venice Island, a lot of the homes are older there, so they're not elevated. You're closer to the beach, so there's a little bit more flood risk. Homes that are elevated generally is going to help reduce your flood risk, but also the location. Is it near a canal? And storm surge, like that's a whole another different thing. Like you could get flooded from just so much rain coming down, but it could also happen from storm surge. So those are just all little things you'll want to put into consideration, and also just looking at the history. Like, you know, a lot of flood maps have been really updated in the last couple of years because of all the storms coming through and changing FEMA's perspective of where flood risks lie and don't lie. But also flood risks have changed too, because as more areas get developed, where the water can go and how it flows, all that changes. So again, get a hold of us, you know, if that's something that's a big concern for you, which I think it should be. I mean, living in Florida in general, but especially so close to the ocean, it should be something that you're putting into consideration for sure. And then also, you know, if you're willing to live in something that's a flood zone, putting into perspective the cost of flood insurance as well, and putting that into your budget, because you'll either well, if you're in a flood zone, you're going to be required, if you're not paying cash anyway by your lender, to have it. If you're paying cash, different story, then you don't have to, but there's the potential risks that come with that. So those are all things you'll want to think about, and definitely big things you'll want to consider. Next big thing to consider, and to me this is kind of an exciting part of it, is new construction versus resale homes. And right now, at the time of filming this, it's a really interesting time because we're starting to see inventory build up a little bit more. And so you can get a little bit better deals on resale homes. However, they're resale homes, so sometimes they're older and they need maybe some updating with wiring, plumbing if they're really old. Maybe, you know, your insurance could be higher if it's a really old home. Generally, stuff from like past 2000, your insurance is going to be a little bit less just because of the way the homes are constructed. They're a little more well suited to withstand hurricanes and flooding and things along those lines. And so after you buy the home, there might be upgrades you need to put into it to get it up to par for, you know, making it livable or bringing your insurance costs down or whatever it is you're looking to do. But there's, you know, lots of options out there. Older homes have certain character, certain charm that some people like me, I really like, you know, so it's just, you know, you're gonna have to figure that out as far as what you want. And again, we can help you through that process, and also figuring out maybe like, okay, you know what, I can't afford new construction, or I don't want new construction, but I also don't want to have a lot of hurricane and flood risk, and I don't want my insurance to be really high because the home is so old. You know, where's that happy medium? How can I find something that kind of brings together those needs and find the best of both worlds? Now, new construction, man, there is just so right now I'm in Wellland Park, which, as I mentioned before, I know is technically Northport. Venice addresses in a lot of it. Again, that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying there's a lot of options here, and it's really close to Venice proper. Also, we got to consider North Venice. And actually, there's kind of by North Venice, there's one other new area coming in over by Jacaranda. There's some new apartments coming in there, but also some new construction homes as well. So there's a whole bunch of new options coming to the area, a little bit further from the beach for the most part. North Venice, I think, is really intriguing though, just because you're talking about a 15-ish minute drive to get to Nokomis Beach, which is an awesome, underrated beach, really, really great beach. They actually have a boardwalk there. They've got their own jetty. Venice is known for their jetty, but they also have their own jetty that sits right across from the South Jetty, which is Venice's jetty. And on top of that, you've got yourself the boardwalk that goes along the beach. So if you just want to go there and not get sand on your feet and just maybe catch a sunset, or just hang out for a little bit and not get, you know, sand on your feet, get all dirty, it's nice to have that as well. And there's a couple little like smaller like shack type restaurants, almost like little concession stand looking type things right by the beach as well, that really add to the vibe. So North Venice is intriguing for that. Plus it's got, how do I put it, it's not quite like Wellland Park where it's all master planned. You know, like, so you can see all these sidewalks and stuff that really connects it, makes it walkable. I mean, I've been walking for this entire video. I did a previous video on the channel, a couple of previous videos actually now on the channel, where I'm walking around and going between different pockets, neighborhoods, commercial areas, and things like that. That's one thing that kind of makes Wellland Park intriguing and exciting. Whereas North Venice, it feels semi-master plan, just in the fact that there's all these communities really close to each other. I guess the sidewalk's closed, so I'm gonna have to jaywalk across to the side. Don't tell on me. But it doesn't feel quite as like manicured and as walkable as this, as Wellland Park does. So there's not as much, you know, walkability and interconnectivity going on in that area. So your location is one of the big things you're gonna have to consider when it comes to, you know, thinking about new construction, because a lot of that is going to tend to be, you know, in areas a little bit further from the beach, a little bit more inland. There's a few like scattered, sometimes you'll see like new construction homes being like built in the very few left scattered lots in South Venice, or people just tearing down homes and building new ones, you know, where the old one was. But generally speaking, you're talking about, you know, more of these newer communities. So there's pros and cons to that, both location wise, but then also right now, you know, you got to think about all the other parts of it, such as having the newest, you know, building codes and things like that. That's going to help mitigate your flood and, you know, hurricane risks. It's going to bring down your insurance costs. All those different things are going into having a new construction home, a little bit more peace of mind, you know, and if you do it right, go through us, definitely go through us. The reason I say that is, number one, people think it's going to cost more if you go through us. It does not. All these builders have basically a marketing budget that pays for the realtor. You don't pay for it. It doesn't increase your cost. It doesn't come out of the cost of the home. And the other side of it is we're going to look out for you and have your best interest in mind, whereas the builder's going to have the builder's best interest in mind, or at least half of you know, consideration towards that. You know, so we're going to make sure the home is being built on time, because I know there's a lot of considerations for you if you're looking to buy something with moving from your, you know, current place and selling it and things like that, but also making sure that the home is being built correctly, and you know, the details are being looked at. We keep an eye on the building process for you throughout, because I know a lot of you guys are coming from out of state, so we'll take video of it for you to make sure things are being done the right way and things are being done on time. And again, like, if you're looking to go that route, don't go to the builder and then sign their little form if you want to use us, because once you decide to sign that form, we can't legally help you anymore, unfortunately. So just some things to keep in mind. But then the other big thing to consider is the incentives right now. And again, that's another area we can help you. We can make sure you're gonna get the best price on the home, number one. We can also make sure that you're making the most of the current incentives, which a lot of builders right now are offering. We'll see how much longer that lasts. But those are all things that put into consideration as well, you know. So that's what makes it tricky right now, was deciding to go between resale and new construction, because honestly, to me, with the peace of mind that comes with it, all the incentives such as being able to buy down interest rates, a lot of places are, you know, or builders are including like free upgrades on the home, as far as, you know, things that would normally cost extra. They're maybe giving you a certain amount of money that can be put towards that. Some builders are giving you like flex money. So there's all different things to consider. But the point being, you can get a little more peace of mind, new construction place, and you know that you're solid for as far as like insurance costs and things like that, and just risk as well, and getting a pretty good deal right now. To me, I tend to veer a little towards that, but at the same time, there's just a lot to pick from the resale side of things. Prices have come down a little bit and become a little bit more reasonable in the area. But then there's also the other considerations, such as the cost that you would have to put into it. Okay, 3 other quick things I want to put on your radar. One I kind of talked about a little bit, but I just want to flesh that out a little bit more, which would be septic versus sewer. So septic and being on a well also got some upsides, just for the simple fact that at least with the well, you're not paying a water bill. Now, there is some upkeep and things like that does go into having well and septic, but to not have the water bill is nice. That being said, there are some minerals in the water, which you still will get some of, but much less of, being on city water and sewer, and there's less maintenance involved, but then that's an extra bill to consider. Again, with that, I can't really give you like, oh, this area is for sure as well and septic, this is city water and sewer. There's certain pockets for sure where you could say that for the most part, but sometimes it's just a matter of if you're an HOA, not on an HOA, and then certain areas of Venice in general, it's gonna be different on what areas maybe do or do not have well and septic versus city water or sewer. So get a hold of us again for that, and we can help you navigate that process. Next thing to consider when moving to Venice would be the insurance costs. Again, budgeting for that. And I also want to make a very important clarification, because you'll maybe see some I've seen YouTube comments and videos of people saying, yeah, it's gonna be $7,000 a year to have insurance in Florida, anywhere. I'm like, what? We live about 2 to 3 miles from the coastline, from the actual Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, whatever you want to call it, coastline, and our insurance is about $2,600 a year. Now, that being said, it is entirely possible that it could be $7,000. It just depends on, 1, the location. Are you closer to the water? 2, some of the other things we talked about. How new is the home? Has it been, you know, is it an older home that maybe has a brand new roof? Generally, you're not going to even get insurance through a lot of insurance companies if the roof is under 15 years old. What are the materials as far as the home goes? You know, is it block construction? Is there, you know, shingle roof versus tile roof versus metal roof? Are there hurricane impact windows? Do you have hurricane shutters? All those things are going to make a difference in the cost of your insurance. So the idea that it's going to be $7,000 a year is very misleading from people that are saying that. Like, the world is very weird right now. People either want to like put things extreme negative or extreme positive. We always on this channel try to kind of keep things realistic and in the middle and nuanced to give you the details that are important. So those are things you're going to want to, you know, consider and put into your costs. Another quick thing you'll want to consider before I get to the last big one is that you're going to see some homes go fast still. Now, that is, I would say, the exception, not the rule, but you don't want to count out that possibility. If you see a home that like, oh, this is the one, I would pounce on it, especially if you feel like the price is looking pretty good. You're like, whoa, those are the places that are going right now. So places generally are sitting on the market a little bit longer right now. There is more inventory to pick from. Absolutely true. And there are places, you know, that maybe will be on the market. I've seen places on the market for over a year. I've seen places for that go within 6 days, a couple days, some that even still get slight bidding wars, nothing to the level of, you know, 2021, 2020, but it's possible. And what it comes down to is it a good home, good location, and good condition, all those sorts of things, but also good price. If it's priced well, there is still some places that will fly or that are just so desirable because of the way it looks or the location or the construction or whatever the case may be, that they will still go fast. So those are things you'll want to consider. Also, that's one thing, we also help people sell homes that you'll want to consider when you're looking to sell your home. Like, to stand out, you can't try to like milk every penny out of it possible. I mean, I'm not trying to tell you to like go lose money, but what I'm saying is if you try to go in and price it high, you're just going to blend in with the pack. If you want to stand out, you're going to have to put it at a competitive price, and that's going to be kind of the advantage in today's market, outside of course, those other things, being in a great location, good condition home, beautiful home, all those little things that can help grab people's attention. And of course, the way it's listed, the way it's presented in the listing, which we have a lot of experience in that, and we can really help make sure that it looks the way it needs to get it sold as quick as possible if you're following our advice. The final thing you really got to put into consideration when moving to Venice, but really for Florida in general, is your stuff. And when I say your stuff, I'm talking about, if you're coming from most other states, all the stuff that you got stored up in the attic, all the stuff you got stored in the basement, and probably you got some stuff in the garage too. Most people do. Some people maybe have a little less in the garage because they're using those basements and those attics, which are all things that we do not have in Florida. Now, we have attics, don't get me wrong, we have those. We don't have basements, but the attics are not that usable. They just get so hot, they're a pain to get up into, and just it's so hot in there that it doesn't make sense to store a lot of things up there. So what you're talking about now is dealing with storing everything in your garage, maybe various closets and things like that throughout the home. If you're living in an area where it's allowed, you could maybe have a shed in the backyard, which is another thing to consider with HOAs. A lot of HOAs aren't going to allow you to have that, or if they are, they're going to want to make sure it's out of sight from when people are driving down the road. They want people to be able to see that shed usually. So those are all things you'll want to keep in mind. You'll want to make sure that when you're buying a place, that if you need those things, that you can have those, those storage sheds or whatever the case may be. But also maybe that your garage is a little bigger if you want it to be, or there's more storage throughout the home. But then finally, this is the most important thing with that, you got to get rid of some stuff probably, or pay for a storage unit, which there's no shortage of seeing those down in Florida. There's storage facilities everywhere. It's impossible to drive down a road, I feel like, and not see one unless you're actually in a community. But any of the main roads, you're going to see storage facilities. But then that's another cost you're going to have to pay. You should probably do what we did, and I think this is the best way to go. Anything that's been in your attic or in your basement that you have not touched within 1 year's time, and there's a lot of things I think you could even cut that down to 6 months, but like there's certain, like seasonal holiday things that you're only going to pull out once a year, right? Anything that hasn't been opened or touched within 1 year, you should probably just get rid of, because it's just taking up space. And I got to tell you this, when we moved, I probably got rid of half to 2/3 of the stuff I owned. And you know how much of it I miss or remember? Very, very little. And the stuff that I miss or remember, I wasn't really even using. So while I think, it'd be nice to have it again, I know that deep down in my heart, I probably wouldn't really be using it anyway. And everything else, I couldn't even tell you what it was. It was just taking up space. And then when you see it, you think to yourself, someone must have recognized me. Some of that stuff, you think to yourself, oh, I'm going to use that, or I need that, or whatever the case may be. But you don't. You really don't. And it was almost kind of freeing and liberating to get rid of a lot of that stuff, because it's just like, I'm cluttering up this area, and down here, you're paying for more space. So like, do you want to pay for extra space for stuff that you don't really use? And then when you pull it out, you may be like, oh yeah, I might use it. No, you won't. You won't. You probably won't. If you haven't used it in a year, you probably won't. So that's just my 2 cents. But then the other thing that I liked about that downsizing process, honestly, it was great. It felt great to get rid of it. It really did. At first, you're just like, oh, I don't know if I can part with this. And then once you start getting going, it's like, oh, get it out of here, get it out of here, get it out of here. Don't need it, don't need it, don't need it. But then the other side of it is, after that, you're just like, you're a little more conscious about your buying habits, which is, I think, is a great thing. It's kind of like when I go to look to the store and I'm looking at something, I'm like, like right now it's new and exciting and I kind of want to make that impulse buy. How likely is it that I'm really going to use it and continue to use it? So then what I started doing was, I would see something, I would think about buying it, And I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna sit on that. I'm gonna wait for a little bit. And I would wait at least a few days, maybe a week or a month. And then if I still really wanted it, then maybe I would get it. But it just has been a great way to save money on buying stuff that you don't really need and is an impulse buy. And just makes you a little more aware of like the stuff that you're getting, but also the space that it takes up and the cost that it is to get that extra space. You know, whether you want to pay for a storage facility or, you know, buy a place, a home where you can have a storage unit behind the house. That being said, once again, if you are looking to buy or sell a home in the Venice area, call, text, or email our team. We've helped a lot of people do it. We want to help you too. We want to minimize the mistakes, the red flags, and just make the process faster, smoother, and easier for you. Call or text us at 941-221-1897 at any time. We want you to join all the other people that we've helped and that we absolutely have loved helping. If you want to know more about what it's like to live in Venice, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in that video next, and live breezy.